Good morning, everyone. I'm going to take the privilege of calling the meeting to order until our Councilman Valenzuela is able to come into the room. First item on the agenda is call to the public. We do have one card, Dwayne Lawson. Welcome.
Good morning. Last December, I was here before the City Council and the Aviation Subcommittee, and what I wanted to do is congratulate the City and Subcommittee on winning their lawsuit with the FAA as regards the flight changes. I also had a very important question for me since I live in the East Valley, where flight path changes have also taken place, where the routes have been compressed into narrow little bands, greatly increasing the amount of aircraft traffic there. And I asked twice, this ruling, does it affect the Eastern Valley? Are all of the routes going to go back to their original paths? Twice, the committee told me that yes, all routes are going to go back to the pre-September 2014. Subsequent to that, I took part in the FAA's open houses, and I noticed on one of the information page that they handed out that at the bottom it said that while the FAA will accept public input, that they are the sole arbiter of what final changes, if any, will be made. And then I also became aware that on February 7th that the city, the neighborhoods, and the FAA entered into an agreement whereby the scope of the original judge's ruling was changed. And there was a couple of changes, but the most important one for the eastern side is the court also granted the request to limit the scope of the court's opinion to only the September 2014 westerly departure paths, the most impactful changes. The original scope included every change made in September 2014. Now, the way I read that is the FAA is not compelled by law, by any court's decision, to actually make any changes. It's solely their prerogative to do nothing, to make any, do nothing from what current paths are going forward. And as you all are very well aware, the FAA has been fighting the city. They've been deaf to the needs and wants of the community as far as the quality of life impacts that have been made, and it's taken a judge's order to get them to agree to do anything. So the way I read this is that this could wind up just being a big cruel hoax to all of the people on the eastern side as far as getting any redress whatsoever from the FAA, because the FAA has shown that over and over again that they do not care about the city and the people in this valley. They care about what the airlines want.
I would ask staff, the airport director is here. He could assign somebody to probably meet with you and talk to you about this. I know some changes, I believe, have been implemented, but you're right on many points. So, Jim, could you have somebody meet with him and tell him what's going on and give him the latest? Thank you. Did you want to make a comment?
I have a question, because it's item 17, and FAA flight path update. Could you, after hearing these comments, kind of incorporate in your update some of the answers, I guess? Okay.
Okay,
Thank you. Next is the minutes of the meeting of May 2nd. Do we have any amendments or motion to approve?
Move the minutes of May 2nd, 2018.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We think Councilman Valenzuela is going to be here very quickly. Next on the agenda is items 2 through 9, which are consent items. But I wanted to make sure the chair was in favor. And here's the chair. We are consent.
All right, thank you so much for starting the meeting. Yep. 8. Right, okay. The next item to pass, the consent agenda, items 2 through 9. Let's do 2 through 7, because we do have a couple of cards, one for none wishing to speak. We're okay, okay. So the consent agenda is, there are items 2 through 9. We do have one card for item 8, Ryan Kerr, marked in favor, not wishing to speak. And we have 3 cards for item 9, Jerry McHugh, Gigi George, welcome, and Paul Barnes. Mr. Barnes, always good seeing you. All marked in favor, all wishing not to speak, so we'll keep them on the consent agenda if that's okay. Do we have a motion and
Motion to approve items 2 through 9.
Second.
a motion and a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on now to item 10, Key Phoenix Economic Indicators, the quarterly report.
No, those are information on like 10 through 11.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Yeah,
Just information on-
gotcha. So items 10 and 11, we do have staff here ready for a report. This is for information only. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Okay, we okay if we just move to item 12?
Sure.
All right, we'll move to item 12, authorization to enter into a contract with Airmark Sports and Entertainment.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. Item before us, we have a recommendation to enter into an exclusive food and beverage services contract at the Phoenix Convention Center. I would like to introduce April Transalito, who is our Fiscal and Procurement Services Manager. April oversaw a solicitation process that we recently went through earlier in the year, and based on a panel recommendation, we have a recommendation. So April will run through the proposal as well as a recommendation for you today.
Thank you, John. Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. Thank you, sorry. Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, we began this revenue contract solicitation process, hereinafter I'll refer to as RCS, by hiring an industry consultant who assisted us with industry best practices and with the RCS process itself. We had 5 firms who attended our mandatory pre-proposal meeting, and we received 2 proposals. One of those proposals is from Airmark Sports and Entertainment, who's doing business as Aventura Catering, who received an evaluation panel score of 887.5 points. The second proposal was from Volume Services, who does business as Centerplate, who received an evaluation panel score of 765.95. Both the proposals and interviews with those proposers were evaluated by a diverse and qualified panel that consisted of 2 representatives from the tourism and hospitality community, 3 staff members from the Phoenix Convention Center Department, and 1 staff member from the Aviation Department. The proposals were evaluated based on the evaluation criteria you see here before you. As you remember, this evaluation criteria was approved by this subcommittee back on February 7th. The panel, through consensus, is recommending award to Aventura Catering as the most responsible and responsive proposer who demonstrated the best value to the city. Aventura provides a distinctive brand coupled with innovative cuisine, a dramatic presentation, and impeccable guest service that mirrors that of the Phoenix Convention Center, along with an elevated retail food strategy that provides quality, healthy, convenient, and personalized options. With the use of local partners, they have demonstrated the best value to the city that is focused on increasing revenues. Here's a list of some of the local brands that they are proposing through their collaboration with Local First Arizona. All of these would be subcontractors to Aventura. Those include Macayo's Mexican Table, Oso Brewery and Distillery, Cooper's Barbecue Company, Spanado's Pizzeria, Doc's Artisan Ice Cream, Fillmore Coffee Co., and Diablo Burger. They will continue their collaboration with Local First Arizona upon a contract award to contract with the organizations that provide the best fit for the Phoenix Convention Center. They are proposing to enhance the catering side of our business by promoting the use of action stations. These are chef-attended stations that allow attendees to become a part of the process, giving the experience a casual and fun theme. By incorporating a new and modern look and feel, and to increase revenues with the addition of exhibit booth catering. They are proposing to rebrand our current Metro Marché to the Phoenix Marketplace, which will include both local and corporate outlets. They're proposing to enhance our exhibit concessions through the use of a spin concept. By utilizing technology, they will be able to provide a seamless changeover of the options based on client needs. For example, in the morning, they could have some type of a Southwest option, and in the evening, they could have a healthy option or perhaps a burger bar. In addition, they're proposing a new concession area, the Street Eats, which will incorporate many of the local businesses that we've mentioned before. Lastly, with the addition of mobile carts, this will increase convenience and therefore revenues to the city. Through their partnerships, they are proposing to reinvent our current innovation studio space by subcontracting with a local brew pub. One example of that is Oso. They are a local nano brewery and distillery whose original home opened in Arcadia in 2011. Since then, they have opened multiple locations throughout the valley. This will provide a great spot for happy hour and post-event socializing all on the Convention Center campus. As mentioned before, they will continue to partner to provide the best fit for the Phoenix Convention Center upon contract award. As you can see, they are proposing the same upscale modern design for our theaters. Through the use of technology, they have designed solutions which will speed up the process during intermission, getting patrons back to their seats faster, which is something that we currently struggle with. Technology, sustainability, and local sourcing were three of the more important items that we wanted the proposers to address. Some of the items that Aventura proposed for technology is the use of mobile ordering, which allows for the increased speed of transaction, increased sales through convenience, and keeps the sales on the Convention Center property. Some of their sustainability efforts included a true garden, recyclable and compostable serviceware, and an indoor garden in our innovation kitchen. Lastly, they are addressing local sourcing through their partnership with Source Arizona, which is a local first Arizona program. And subsequently, this also supports their sustainability efforts. The proposed business terms is an initial 10-year contract with one 5-year option to extend by mutual agreement, a $6.5 million initial capital investment, stepped commission rate based on total gross sales, provides for a minimum annual commission guarantee, and dedicated accrual funds. In addition to the 4 required accrual funds, Aventura has also proposed an additional fund, the Innovation Fund, which will be used for developing and maintaining a superior guest experience. The proposed financial impact is approximately $90 million in revenues to the city over the initial 10-year contract term. This represents an approximate $2 million a year increase over the current contract. It provides for additional milestone commission payments, again based on total gross sales, and provides for the $6.5 million initial capital investment, which represents about $5.5 million more than the previous contract. Based on the panel's recommendation, the Phoenix Convention Center requests this subcommittee recommend award of our exclusive food and beverage provider to Aramark Sports and Entertainment.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, April and I are happy to answer any questions. We also have members of the proposal team that are here in the audience that are available to take questions as well.
Great, thank you. And thank you all for participating. Any questions or comments, Councilman Nowakowski?
Yes, one of the big things that we pushed for 10 years ago was to make sure that there was a lot of local participations when it comes to the food and beverage. And we have some great partners that are in there right now that are actually reaching out in the community, doing outreach with different nonprofits and all that. What happens to those individuals that are in there right now?
Councilman Nowakowski and members of the subcommittee, based on the information we have, all of the existing subcontractors that are part of the current contract will have the ability to stay on in a subcontractor role and to maintain. They provide great service already, and those are local operators that we want to keep as part of the convention center.
And one of the things that I always get comments about is that once Matador closed, that there's not a major Mexican restaurant in downtown Phoenix. I know that you have Macayo's there, but I'm not sure if it's sold and it's not really owned by the original family, it's more investors. So is there any really local, I know some people call it Southwest, Mexican type of restaurant, food. Is there any of that in that mix?
Councilman, the proposed local subcontractors are not 100% locked in. So as part of this process, we can work with the recommended proposer through their partnerships with Local First to bring in something that if it's a desire to have something that's more local authentic, then we would work with them to perhaps incorporate that as part of the overall plan.
And then I noticed that we're going to have alcohol being served in our convention center.
Correct.
So is that just within that restaurant area? Or can they actually walk around our convention center with drinks from that location?
Based on the current liquor license, so all alcohol sales need to remain on site. And if, for example, we do a event where we close Third Street, then we follow the state law and we do an extension of premise. So that's how we handle when we bring events to the outside.
And the last question is, I know that there's a lot of events and people come to us all the time complaining about, well, seeing that the orphans in my district, they're saying, council member, when we use the plaza area, we're forced to use the catering from the convention center. Is there any way to waiver that, or is that the fact still today with this new contract?
Outside on the plaza next to the Orpheum is not part of the Orpheum property. However, it would be challenging to have, one food and beverage provider service the outside and another one service the inside. So that would be the only challenge with trying to allow another third party, but that's entirely possible.
Okay.
I have some questions.
Councilman Pastor?
Can you go back to the slide where it has the local? Keep going. One more. No, keep going. Right
This way?
there.
There you go.
So did I just hear that these local vendors are not locked in as subcontractors?
They have preliminary agreements with each of these subcontractors. It's subject to ultimately signing a contract with the city as the master vendor. So right now, these agreements that they have with these operators are preliminary.
So then what I'm hearing is there hasn't been an agreement signed or a contract signed. So the possibility that what we're seeing today, these vendors may be different. These contractors may be different.
They could be, but this is what was proposed. So as far as the city's concerned, if one of these subcontractors were to be replaced with another one, I think it would be our intent that whatever is replaced is equal or better in terms of the subcontractor, and that would be subject to the city's approval.
And okay, so then you'll come back around, I'm assuming, but always don't assume, that you'll come in front of the committee and then present what contracts or subcontractors are now part of this contract?
We could do that, but yes, it would be our intent that whatever replacement is going to be equal or better. But
And,
we can do that.
and obviously local. That's I think that's one of the key dynamics is making sure it's local and that the current contractors in the convention center also have the ability to, be part of the subcontracting
Absolutely.
contract.
Correct.
I think I got that right. My second question is, I know that we want to activate that space, that we want it to really make it a hub in that area. There was a picture of OHSO. I don't know how
You're
to-
talking
OSO?
about on
OSO?
Monroe
Yeah.
Street?
Uh-huh.
Right.
So that's the frontage, I'm thinking, of on Monroe, where that's where it would be placed and activated. And I'm assuming that all around that perimeter we want to activate. I'm thinking 3rd Street
That is the
And-
desire is to create more activation on the
Third
street
Avenue.
level.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay. So I see where the concept's going. I guess that's where I'm trying to see where the concept's going.
So Councilwoman, what you're looking at is directly across from the Herberger Theater.
Okay,
yeah.
that's where I'm trying to, yeah. Thank you. So that makes sense on all that space where we had pop-up shops during Super Bowl. That's that
Exactly,
space. Okay.
exactly.
So with that concept, I see outdoor dining. We will then do the right permitting and making sure, because outdoor dining, I'm assuming when the, I should stop saying that word, that when the weather is good, we're sitting outside and we would like an adult beverage. So I'm assuming that all of that space will then be covered by the liquor
And as
license.
part of the build-out, the proposal would be required to follow all the local zoning and permitting requirements.
All right, well, thank you. Looks good.
I have one more follow-up question. I'm just concerned because this is actually in my district, and right across the street from there is St. Mary's Basilica and the Diocese of Phoenix. And I know that we were out there doing the bid, but I never seen these types of concepts where there's going to be actually alcohol right across the street or catty-corner to the diocese and to St. Mary's Basilica. I would really like to maybe, if we could continue this, to make sure that we secure local participation and also talk to our neighbors to make sure that they have no problem having a bar right across the street from St. Mary's Basilica and the Diocesan Center, so we become good neighbors prior to approving it. I would hate to go to a formal and having individuals protesting the use of a great spot. And the concept's great. I just want to make sure that we talk to the right people surrounding the convention center that might have some concerns about it.
So did you do outreach within that space?
Yeah, and I believe that there may be an exception for that particular church, but I may be wrong. But there might be something already there, considering the location in downtown, but, yeah.
Yeah, that-
To answer your question, Councilwoman, we have not had external discussions about this particular concept.
So you'll check with sorry.
No, good,
You'll,
Mayor, yeah.
you'll check with planning and for liquor, because I think there are some other bars or places that serve liquor that are within the 500 feet. And I think it's been accepted before.
Councilwoman, there is an existing liquor license that would remain. It's not the city's liquor license, it's the operator's liquor license. So they are required to follow all the state liquor laws that pertain to serving alcohol on premise.
At that location,
Correct.
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
may I respond to that? So I think there's a difference between having a liquor license for a convention and conventioneers, where you're going to be in a big space, not right off the street, not having outside dining and drinking in front of a church. So I don't think the diocese or St. Mary's Basilica might not have a problem with it. But I'd just like to give them the heads up so we're good neighbors, especially seeing that we own the facility and we're the ones approving this RFP and then eventually probably extending the liquor license to outdoors permanently.
We could incorporate that if that's a desire of the subcommittee, yes.
I think that's a good point. I think communication is always a good thing. Having a conversation is always a good thing. You know, again, I don't recall the actual exception, but or what it looks like, but I believe there is one. But I'll leave it to you, John, to check that out. Downtown is growing. We need the next version of downtown as we come in. There are more people who live in downtown. We have a great art scene and a foodie scene and a bar destination and all of these things that are happening here in downtown. And so, you know, communication is it's a big thing as we continue to move forward. I do want to just mention, I want us to be careful. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I don't own a restaurant. And I certainly don't want to put requirements on which restaurants go in. Really successful restaurants know what they're doing. The restaurant owners know what they're doing. They're paying attention to the market. And so, you know, I want to be sure that we're getting. There's certain things that I always like to see. I like to see something that's unique. You know, Oso's actually a pretty good place there on Indian School in the Arcadia area, right? You see all that's happening with the Fox concepts and, you know, what Lauren Bailey is doing, and some people want a chain, and a lot of people want something local, but you know, I don't, like I said, I don't want to hamstring what those investors are doing to make it a better city. So I know that when we put something like that out, we open it up, people respond, and we go with it, you know. But I just wanted to make that comment. And any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, we don't have any cards on this particular item, so I can entertain a motion, and in the motion, if you'd like, Councilman Nowakowski or anyone else, in the motion could be, you know, you want to add a couple of points. We want to ask city staff to go and meet with the church and anyone else. We can do that. Would you like to make the motion?
I'd like to make a motion that, that we pass this item with the exception that we talk to the St. Mary's Basilica and the diocese to let them know what the concept is and if they're okay with that. And if you get back to the council before the formal with those responses.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you. Okay, item 13. Mr. Bennett and the team. Transdev RCC bus contract extension.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to be here this morning. You may recall a few months ago we were in front of the subcommittee and council requesting your guidance and authorization to enter into negotiations with Transdev regarding the potential for an extension of the rental car shuttle bus service at Sky Harbor so that it would correspond with the completion of Stage 2 of the Phoenix SkyTrain. And today I'm joined by Steve Grubbs, our Deputy Aviation Director for Operations, as well as Kim Brown, our Aviation Operations Ground Transportation Manager, who would like to discuss with you our recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, this item is to request your recommendation to extend the Transdev Rental Car Center bus contract through the operational opening of the Phoenix SkyTrain Stage 2. We have tentatively agreed to terms and are ready to move forward with the recommendation. The current term expires on December 31st of 2018, the end of this year. We are recommending a 3.5-year term extension from January of 2019 through June of 2022. That would extend the contract until the estimated public opening for Stage 2 of the Phoenix SkyTrain and allow Transdev to continue to provide their 24/7 bus service, maintenance, and curb ambassador service that they provide today. Currently, we spend approximately $14 million annually for Transdev bus and maintenance service. We are proposing to spend approximately $14.9 million per year on average and not to exceed $52 million over the 3.5-year contract extension. In addition to the contract term extension, we would make a few adjustments to the business terms in the contract. Transdev is committed to providing a robust workforce transition plan, which includes providing comparable employment where available, such as a lateral move as a bus driver within the city transit system, career transition training to provide resume workshops, interview simulations, and career assessments, and outplacement services to help employees transition to new jobs and help them reorient themselves into the job market. The average age of our 108 city-owned buses is approximately 12 years old, and OEM or original equipment manufacturer parts are becoming harder to find and more expensive. Some offset savings include agreeing on limited use of aftermarket or non-OEM parts and materials. And additional bus maintenance savings and initiatives are also included. The primary increases to the contract are comprised of our annual CPI increase, bus hour additions for increased passenger growth, and increased busing due to train testing leading up to the public opening. Additionally, we have a minor adjustment to the hourly rates to compensate for Proposition 206 and the collective bargaining agreement items that have been agreed upon by TransDev, management, and labor. And with that, the Aviation Department requests the subcommittee's recommendation to City Council to extend the term of the contract and amend the business terms for RCC busing services. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I make a, any questions?
Any?
No, go ahead, you can make a motion.
I make a motion to extend the contract, the term of the contract with TransDev for the rental center, car center busing at Sky Harbor International Airport.
And I second that. I think it's a great solution, and it also provides the means for employees to be able to transition into other areas. So thank you for doing that.
Great, we have no cards. We have a motion, second, any other questions or comments?
Just thanking for that transition of that workforce development for our employees that are there. The other thing too is maybe in the future, we can ask the mayor to look into having some kind of transportation from Sky Harbor to Mesa Gateway. I know that there's a lot of individuals that look for a way to get from our airport to our other airport, which is Mesa Gateway, especially with Alliance Airlines being out there. There's a lot of individuals that like to fly that, and they fly into Sky Harbor, but have no ways to get to Mesa.
I will do so.
Thank you.
A motion and a second. We have no cards. I also want to thank city staff. I want to thank our partners at the airport for making that happen. It's a very important transition period. We've talked about this before, and this is a good thing for Sky Harbor and for Phoenix. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on now to item 14.
I can talk about it. I know it.
Good morning, Councilman, members of the subcommittee. We are here today to discuss with you staff's recommendation to issue a request for proposal on the former First National Bank building. The building is located at the northeast corner of Jefferson and 24th Street. It is approximately 1.5 acres, and the building itself is approximately 5,500 square feet. This was originally a branch of the First National Bank building. It was built in 1966. It is part of the mid-century modern book that we appreciate here in the community. The building is eligible for historic designation. The city purchased the building in 2000, and Aviation was a tenant in the building for approximately 8 years. Both the Aviation and Economic Development team have received a number of requests for this particular building, and Aviation has determined that they no longer need the building. So staff recommends taking this out for a request for proposal for disposal. Should council approve moving this forward, Aviation and Economic Development would work closely together to issue an RFP for the adaptive reuse of the building. So the projects would be required to match Reinvent Phoenix, the Gateway Transit-Oriented Development Plan, historic preservation design guidelines, and any other applicable regulations and guidelines as we work with planning and development on this. All proposers will be required to agree to a 30-year conservation easement. The city will not transfer the building out of its ownership until this building is heard by our Historic Preservation Commission and fully vetted by them and the designation selected by them. One other important item to note that's not in your report, the building will be required to provide an navigation easement. What that means is that it doesn't have any issues in the future once it's sold with planes flying over the top of it or around it or those aviation uses, so it protects our airport. This RFP will also be required to be in conformance and subject to FAA approval. As minimum qualifications, we will require adaptive reuse of the building to incorporate the historic parasols and former drive-through structure through the building. Although it's interesting, we've received some feedback from some community members that perhaps the drive-through structure isn't as historic as we thought, but we'll certainly leave that up to the HP Commission, and propose a minimum purchase price of $470,000. The $470,000 is the appraised value. We did tour the building yesterday, and I have to tell you, the inside of it's an absolutely cool building. You see in front of you staff's proposed evaluation criteria, the concept to activate the site, the return and benefit to the city and the community that is both monetary with its initial upfront purchase, and of course the benefit that it would give to the community over a significant period of time. And this will be a challenging property to retrofit, so the proposer's qualifications and experience will really be important to the community, that they're able to do the right thing for the building. We have had a pretty robust community outreach program. We have visited with the Central City Village Planning Committee, who's recommended approval, the Aviation Advisory Board, Historic Preservation, and we're here before you today. We are working to get on the agenda. We visited with a number of members of the United Business Coalition, but we're working to get formally on their agenda right now. And of course, should this committee just approve to move it forward, we would be at the City Council on your June 20th meeting with an issue of the RFP this summer. So staff is here today requesting authorization to move forward to the formal council meeting for issuance of a request for proposal. And Mr. Bennett and I will be happy to take any questions you have.
Any questions or comments by my colleagues?
I'd like to make a motion,
Oh, go ahead.
motion to approve staff's recommendation.
I have a second, and I'm really excited about this because the United Business Coalition was the one who really wanted to see that space activated. The fact that I understand why we purchased it, because we wanted to preserve some history and the historic architecture of the building, but we need to activate that space. I'm not sure if the city is the one that has the ability to activate the space. I feel like the request for proposal really is at the heart of really wanting to preserve that building, but making it an awesome gateway from the airport to downtown Phoenix. So I'm excited about this one. So I made a second.
Okay. And any other questions or comments? Good to go. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on now to item 15. We'll keep Chris Mackey here.
I'll just stay in the seat if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Good morning again. We are here today. With me at the table is Terry McAvoy, a project manager in community and economic development. And we are here today to talk with you about a recommendation to move forward with a development agreement and sale of the property at Central and Adams. This property is located at 30 North 1st Street. It was acquired by the city in 1983, and it's always been used as a parking lot. It's a 30-stall surface parking lot today. The property is approximately 26,000 square feet, so just over a half an acre. You'll know it by its site. We all lovingly call it the Hanny's parking lot, and a number of individuals have been using that since that time. Its appraised value is $2.73 million, or $105 a square foot. You see in front of you the existing conditions today. You see the APS easement and the alley that goes between the One North Central building, and you see the parking lot and Hanny's building. We did issue a request for proposal at council's direction and opened it in November of 2017. It closed in January of 2018. We did receive 2 responses. We had an independent panel that sat and conducted the interviews and recommended moving forward with 1 individual project. And that development team that they have recommended to move forward with is Berger Holdings, Sunbelt Holdings as partners, Gensler, a group, as the architect, and Sunt Construction as the development entity. What they are proposing with this item is a 200,000 square foot project. It is ground floor retail activation, 60 stalls of parking, office and flex commercial on the next floor, and then a 200-key hotel. They have not selected the brand of the hotel yet until the council makes the determination to move forward. They've not made that selection yet. This is approximately a $62 million investment on the site. In front of you, we're pretty excited. You see the renderings of what this project will look like. We have listened to council and are excited to bring forward something I think that will really define the area. We have conducted community outreach, meeting with both the Downtown Neighborhood Alliance and Downtown Voices Coalition. We did meet with both those entities in May, and they did voice their support and approval for this project. The performance benchmarks you see in front of you, we would agree to come to a development agreement within 6 months. They would commence construction within 18 months and finish the project within 30 months. So we're holding the development community to a really tight timeline to make sure that we get great projects out of the ground here in the downtown area. The benefits to the city are about $2.4 million in construction sales tax, approximately 230 permanent jobs. Those would be through the hotel, but also more importantly, being the economic developer who oversees office, is also including the office development for new office tenants. As you know, our vacancy rate in office is sub 10% here in downtown now. We don't have a lot of open space for those office tenants, so we're excited about that. This will put this property back on active property tax rolls. They are not requesting any type of city assistance in a tax abatement, so it will pay approximately $500,000 a year in property tax. And you'll remember recently, Renaissance on the North did complete their Adams Street activation, and this project will complete the Adams Street activation on the southern side. Staff is recommending this subcommittee move forward to the full council to enter into a development agreement and sale of the property located at 30 North First Street. And with that, we're happy to take any questions you might have.
We don't have cards. Any questions or comments?
I'd make a comment. I know we have been trying to do something on this property for a long time. What I appreciate about this project, it seems like all the other buildings going up downtown all look alike. They're all a rectangular box, and this at least is different. It could be iconic in downtown, and I'm very supportive of this project going forth. I think it provides a mixed use of entailing everything we've asked you to include in it, so I'm very supportive.
Thank you. Councilman Nowakowski.
This is actually my district, and one of the things that we really looked at is how to define this whole space. Not just this surface parking, but it's really the gateway into our convention center. So when we reactivated Adams Street, the master plan was actually, when you come out of the convention center, you come into a wow effect. And I think this is going to be the missing key point of that wow effect. The other thing we talked about is making sure that there's a lot of activation on the first floor with retail, restaurants, and you know, some local mom and pop shops down there too. And that was one of the commitments that we heard, that absolutely we're going to do that. The other concern I have is that every time we go out there and we look for conventions and we bid stuff out there, they always ask us about hotel rooms, that we need more hotel space. So that was one of the things that was great about this project, having that. The other thing too is I asked just as a favor to look into actually, one of the big questions we have too is if it's a union hotel or not, because that's some of the questions when there's conventions that are out there. So suggested that they would sit down and find out if we can actually put that into our portfolio too. So, and also more business offices. So it's a combination of everything. It's a great project. I really want to thank staff for making sure that the RFP was a great RFP that was a gateway right into our convention center, and that's going to generate a lot of funds for the near future.
I have several questions. One is that in the slides, you had two proposers. Am I correct?
Correct.
So only two out of this whole thing. And I guess my question to you, the other proposer that did not receive the RFP, I guess, or was there a protest? Because lately we've been having protests after several RFPs. So my question is, was there a protest?
Yes. So Chairman, Councilwoman Pastor, so the two proposers, the top point getter was 930 points. The second proposer was 765 points. The second proposer proposed a 240 key hotel with ground floor retail. They did provide a protest to the city. We did respond to their protest, and they did not respond back within the protest period time, so they dropped their proposal. They have left their deposit on file with the city in case positive terms cannot be concluded with the recommended proposer.
Okay. And you said a 200,
240 key, so 240 room hotel
Okay.
was what the second proposer proposed. No parking. All parking would have to be handled off-site and no office space.
Okay. My second question to that is, did they have a brand hotel?
Chairman, Councilwoman Pastor, to my knowledge, no. Neither of the proposers in their proposal stated what their brand would be. But I need to think of, I could be wrong on that. I don't recall that it was in there.
Well, you probably would have remembered if it was a brand hotel. So I'm helping you out, Chris.
Thanks, thank you.
I would have never known at this state in my world and life that I would be understanding the nuances of a hotel due to the fact of the Sheraton Hotel and how brand hotels, or how they go back and forth regarding what brand's going to go where and how we're going to change the brand and how much money and the financing behind the hotel and where the hotel financing coming from. Is it secure? Boom, boom, boom. So in the process of selecting, and I don't know how this goes about, this is just what I have learned on the fly. Do you know the process of how they go about selecting a brand hotel or how they get a brand hotel?
I would for this, Chairman, Councilwoman Pastor, for this particular hotel, we do have the recommended proposer here. If you'd like him to talk you through the process of how their plan for this specific hotel goes. From our standpoint, typically what they do is they identify the site that they're interested, a developer would identify the site that they're interested in developing on, and then they go out and market it to the brands
right.
and get the brand interest based on the RevPAR in the area, revenue per available room in the area, what the occupancy rates are, so showing the demand and then showing the growth in the market. They then take that out to the market, much like we would market office space to a tenant, and get interest ginned up on who that would be. Before they start construction, typically they know who their brand is going to be because they build the hotel differently for different brands that are coming forward. But we do have the recommended proposer here if you'd like to hear from him what his specific concept is on selecting a brand for this site.
Okay.
Sure. John, Justin?
Justin Graham with the Sunbelt Holdings. Our hotel partners, Burger Holdings, were very sad they couldn't be here today, but I'm happy to answer this. So I'll start by saying that Chris Maggie did a great job explaining exactly the process. To provide a little more color on it in the context of this building, what we do know is that it's we call it in the hotel world like a limited service micro unit hotel. So they're small concept rooms with not a full pro forma of hotel amenities such as spa, et cetera. But there are a number of hotel users who are very interested in this site. So we are talking to a handful, and in order to maintain our leverage at this point, we've decided not to choose a partner until we are awarded the final recommendation.
Okay. So it's basically that, there's, basically what I'm saying is there's a whole process in the hotel world, I guess is what I'm saying. Like Chris explained it very clearly. I don't think I can get that, do it that well. But there's a whole process of selecting a brand, if it fits the performa, and then that's when it goes out to the market for investors. And then once that happens, then it's a whole package, and that's when the brand and the investors come together to build a hotel.
You're absolutely correct.
Correct.
All right, that's what I just think people, the public needs to understand the whole process of the behind the scenes, basically how to get to at the end point, at the end outcome of that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
So, I have received calls and today regarding this, and so I would like to make a recommendation that the developer, or when it comes to the brand selection in the hotel, meet with several people in our community regarding of hotel industry. So that's my recommendation.
Be happy to work with the recommended proposer and ensure that happens.
Mr. Chair? I think the conversation about hotels is interesting. It reminds me a lot of airlines. They change all the time. They keep buying each other out, changing their names, and when you get to the bottom of them, most of them are all branded names. I think they just like a location, and whatever the most dramatic is how they name it, whether it's a garden or it's a different type. But I think this is a project that will absolutely lure a very branded name to come in here. It will be very competitive, not only by location, but by style. So I move approval of this project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Chairman, before I just to the Councilwoman Pastor's question, I've just got to know. I just wanted to be very clear and very transparent. The other proposer did have a brand hotel that they had recommended approval of. I had forgotten that it was quite a number of months ago, and I had forgotten that they had moved forward in their proposal with a brand name hotel in tow. So I wanted to be very transparent and clear.
I appreciate that. Does that change anything?
No, just some comments. Just to make sure that, I know we've been working so hard, I mean, personally, on Adams Street, making sure that we have the right restaurants, product, and activating that whole thing. I just want to make sure that we reach out to the convention community and to the hospitality community, that we get the right, and advocate for the right hotel to go in there, right? I just want to make sure that it's something that people can actually use the credits that they accumulate when they come to conventions and stuff at that hotel. So I want to make sure before it comes to formal, we kind of get an idea of what type of hotel is going to go there. And if we can maybe have that prior to I think it's the 20th. I'm not sure if that's possible or not. And I know that our staff would actually work hard to help you with those numbers and advocate how we need more hotels, especially bringing in the Super Bowl, and we're looking at the Final Four and all those types of events. I'm not sure if that's enough time for you all or not.
Thank you, Councilman. I just wanted to point of clarification. Is it possible? I mean, it's going to the full council in 2 weeks. Mr. Graham?
Anything's possible, but it's probably going to be hard.
Thank you, John Graham, Sunbelt Holdings. I can actually do it right now, which would probably make it easier. So the types of things we're looking at, as Justin talked about, is a style, but two examples would be Tapestry by Hilton and Moxie by Marriott. which are very, very, probably two of the trendiest hotels in the United States right now. So it's that is the kind of direction we're going. So hopefully that helps. Thank you.
That was definitely a good answer.
Okay, any other questions or comments by my colleagues?
No,
you have
I'm
some?
ready to vote.
Okay. We'll put it to a vote. All in, so the motion, to be clear, is this is going to move for approval, but I think you pointed out, Councilman, just to keep the community abreast, or what's the, okay?
Or
And I think
community members that are requesting meetings and to continue that dialogue.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes June 20th. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, item 16, I would like to continue this to our next meeting.
Okay, item 16, we have a motion to continue. Do I need a motion? I need a motion. And a second to continue?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes to continue to the next meeting. All right, this final item has been a standing item on this subcommittee for, I don't know, a couple of years now. And it is the FAA flight path update. And it's a different conversation, isn't it? A couple of years later. But it's important that we still have this. Mr. Bennett, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you are correct. The conversation is a little bit different than it has been for the past 3 years. I would like to, of course, just remind the subcommittee that on May the 24th, the final changes on stage 1 of the agreement with the FAA over the lawsuit became effective. And as of today, the District Court of Appeals has just released their final order, essentially ending the lawsuit between the city and the FAA and the neighborhood association. So with that, we would like to do an update, and then Mr. Feld would also address some of the questions associated with stage 2.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Very quickly, by way of quick history here, on May 17th, the tribal communities offered their concurrence on the Step 1 final package of changes, as Mr. Bennett just referenced. And then on May 22nd, the record of decision issued for Step 1B, producing this map. So we have approximately 2 weeks of flight data to show here. We'll bring back a more robust map at the next meeting, obviously showing all of the current flight paths. But what you're seeing here is the southwest track change, which we did not have last time. The previous routes are shown in purple here, and you can see cutting right through Cesar Chavez Park at 35th Avenue. And then today, the 18 route shown in blue, shifting significantly to the west off of the populated area and skirting around South Mountain. You can also see the white flight tracks. Those were the 2013 paths from the same period in 2013. And you can eyeball the map and tell that they're nearly identical to the blue lines, which is what you're looking for there. So while Mr. Bennett points out that the court is satisfied with the Step 1 changes and meets the intent of the lawsuit, we still have Step 2 to go through, and that's what the gentleman from Dobbins Ranch is referencing. When we had the public comment open houses that the FAA held in February, over 1,000 comments were received. The majority of those comments had to do with something besides the west departure changes, an arrival change that occurred or departures in east flow. And so the entire Step 2 process was set up for the FAA to look at those comments, decide if they could make any type of substantive change towards those issues, arrivals in Northeast Phoenix or anywhere else. And that's what they're looking at right now. The FAA expects to release their game plan for additional community meetings, and how they would address those comments in July would be the earliest. I would not expect any meetings or actual kind of discussions around those changes probably until the fall, though, or later. So that's where we're at today.
Okay. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? We don't have any cards on this. Thank you for all the hard work and just staying staying on top of it. And we will go ahead and move to the final item, which is call to the public. We do have one card,
He spoke.
and Mr. Lawson already spoke. Any future agenda items, any requests? I know that this is the last subcommittee for the summer, right? Well, it's still 100 degrees, 100 plus in September, so, but you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
It's the last one
Okay.
for you.
Yes.
No, we
You've
don't
done a
know
great
that.
job.
Yeah, thank you.
Really?
Want to thank specific, well, first and foremost, our city leaders, our city employees who put so much time and effort into every single meeting. And of course, I want to thank my colleagues. I've learned so much. Thank you for allowing me to sit with you and chair this particular subcommittee of all subcommittees. And of course, everyone who's filled out a card, who's taken the time to speak up, to be part of our city's democracy and help shape and mold our city. I want to thank you very much for that as well. Have a great summer. And I'm sure I'll see you soon.